Hi, my name is Ada Ámon. I'm the executive director of the Budapest Climate Agency, and I hope you are going to listen this podcast, which is about the necessity and the importance of the transition towards a green and clean energy system in Hungary as well.
Welcome to the Visegrad Insight podcast.
We bring you global experts on the future of democracy, security, and economy.
The leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Hosted by editors of Visegrad Insight.
Powered by Respublika Foundation from Warsaw, Poland.
Welcome. It's Monday, 8th of December 2025. My name is Wojciech Przybylski. I'm editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight. And before we go to the interview of our special guest, Ada Ámon, I wanted to give you a few remarks, perspective from the editorial team on the newly announced national security strategy, much debated all across the Atlantic and across the world, I believe. The strategy has been announced only last week, and it sparked a lot of controversy. We write about it in our weekly outlook, released every Monday and delivered to our subscribers. So stay subscribed or do subscribe if you haven't yet to Visegrad Insight at our website for just a little over a coffee per month worth of intelligence on democratic security from Central Eastern Europe. Democratic and economic security from Central Europe. Europe awakens to a stark reality it has been so eager to ignore. The US National Security Strategy published before this weekend outlines American priorities pivoting to the Western Hemisphere, both Americas, and emphasizing the systemic challenge of rising China, which exploits the open world system of free trade and democratic governance for its strategic interest of political dominance over its economic partners. This is why German external dependencies, including the vast multi-billion-dollar chemical plant in China, started after Russia invaded Ukraine, are explicitly mentioned with understandable irritation of Europe's most important ally, which is the US. At least this is how we read the passages about certain lack of patience towards European positioning in the global order that is no longer certain but contested by Western competitors and rivals such as China or Russia, for that matter. We note down that there is a lot of language that seems more anecdotal, and it seems hilarious from the point of view of how inconsistent sometimes the narrative of the national security strategy is. In fact, it's so inconsistent we call it a chaotic hypocrisy, a term that we have been referring to Viktor Orbán foreign policy and before also to Jarosław Kaczyński government in Poland, where the type of hypocrisy that you often find in international relations has been understood and then as a way of expressing national interest under disguise of certain higher level values has been referred to a system of organized hypocrisy as a system of sovereign nations. Now it seems America is entering the realm of chaotic hypocrisy, and it has passages all along the strategy that seem to contradict one another. On one hand, we read about civilizational erasure of Europe, and at the same time, Europe remains strategically and culturally vital to the United States. So the White House wants to cultivate resistance to Europe's current trajectory within the European nations. And here where we get lost. So where and to what Europeans should resist? There is a contradiction in terms, it seems, in the language itself, which doesn't help very much build constructive dialogue and relations between Europe and the United States. But we understand also that in between the lines, this is a criticism towards the EU, the organization of European countries, a European project under the institutions of the European Union. And there is a lot of irritation of the US administration with the EU as such, as it is a political expression of the will of sovereign nations in Europe to make the European Union project hold on together and provide also responds to some of the strategic allies. And I think there is a lot of inconsistency in the approach of the United States by criticizing the very institution that pushes member states to do better on economic security and to push away a lot of Chinese influence from Europe. So there is this, as I say, chaotic hypocrisy that we find in the narrative of the report. Very importantly, healthy nations of Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe, in the language of the strategy, will enjoy the benefits of economic, military, and political exchanges with the US. So that, of course, is of interest to us at Visegrad Insight as we focus on Central Eastern Europe. But it also raises eyebrows whether all of Central, Eastern, and Southern European partners are considered equal. We know that there is a preference for Viktor Orbán type of politics in the region. At the same time, Poland, who actually is the biggest ally of the United States, including these big purchases of military equipment, unlike Viktor Orbán, who instead of American equipment prefers to buy Russian oil, seems to be much more welcome than Donald Tusk in the White House and has this MAGA flirt over the political ideologies that are currently represented in the US administration. But this is a question also of how far the United States will go, apart from the rhetorics, apart from the narrative, in building the security of United States in relationship to Europe and pushing for a number of electoral political victories of its allies, of the MAGA, Donald Trump's movement allies on the European continent. We say that judging from the experience, there is so much the US can do, actually not so much in terms of influencing European elections. It's something to be wary of. And again, European Union is doing quite a lot. And we write about it, how much it is preparing to provide resistance and resilience, build up resilience of European democracies through the European Democracy Shield project and similar civil society strategies in order not to be taken over by actors, foreign operations who would like to influence our elections. So I'm rather an optimist regarding the chances Europe has to be resilient against any forms of influence, both from US or Russia, China, and so on, as especially a lot is being done. But the question Europe needs to ask itself, and I think that's the worthy element of the American national security strategy, is to take its own role and its own fate in its own hands. In many ways, Central Eastern Europe and Southern Europe here mentioned by Trump is doing quite a lot already in terms of building up its capacity to resist the military aggression. And it also demonstrates growth potential, continuous growth potential on the continent in Europe, much to difference, in comparison with the rest of Europe, a different story that Europe has to tell. It's not just a legacy problem for the US. It's an opportunity, and in that sense, I think Europeans will do best if they stick together, close their ranks, both from the Central Eastern, Southern Europe, and the rest of Europe, and take decisions as they seem to have ambitions to take very, very seriously, and move on from big words and declarations to actual delivery of military capabilities, military service, support for civil society, and thinking also above all about common European voters and the working class, about the job market and ability of Europe to deliver economically, which is at the foundation of the democratic promise also in Europe, just like in the US. Now, let's talk about a certain aspect of this European dream and what Europe is trying to do from the perspective of Hungary, and our special guest who has been joining our Europe Future Forum Polish-Hungarian Perspective special project, Ada Ámon.
Hi, if you're enjoying this episode, why not subscribe to Visegrad Insight? This gives you access to all our latest content online, as well as to our live and online events. you can use our special promo code for Visegrad Insight podcast listeners to get 35% off. Just go to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription, and apply code Visegrad35. And now, back to the podcast.
Ada, thank you for joining. We are discussing in this podcast episode the question of energy, going deeper, making a deeper dive into Hungarian energy mix and energy ambitions, both from the structural point of view, the political to whatever extent we can, but also societal point of view on the change that is going around all of Europe. Even though some politicians, of course, either ignore it or want to reverse it, there is a change in attitudes on energy and energy resource that goes across all of the planet. And in Europe, it is particularly pronounced. Now, Hungary is one of the most energy-intense companies of the past 3 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine has only increased fossil fuel dependency on Russia. That's part of a problem recently observed during negotiations during the trip Orbán had to take to the White House, and a number of occasions when Orbán clashed with the European Commission and other EU leaders on the plans to fully cut off from Russian dependency on fossil fuel. So in part, that is geopolitical question. In part, this is also structural dependency. And I think in the podcast, we can examine with your knowledge the type of energy mix and legacies or legacy problems Hungary might have against the backdrop of future ambitions and plans. And finally, we would touch also on the society and what Hungarians think. So, but let's start from the very beginning. Is Hungary stuck forever in the fossil fuel energy market? Is it going to be always, driven by the interest of the biggest or one of the biggest refineries in Central Europe, MOL? And its dependency on the Russian oil, that it is important and so dear to its economic model? Or there are some signs of change?
Well, Russian oil and gas, as well as Russian nuclear fuel. So if it all comes together, it's a huge share of our energy consumption covered from Russian sources. Most of the Hungarian households somehow connected to natural gas, and the heating systems are run by these resources or fuel. So the Hungarian government continuously decided to ease that problem by lowering the energy prices. And the Orbán government is even more vocal on this. It is a very important energy policy element or social policy element to lower electricity and gas prices as energy carriers to the households. And obviously, if it's low price, people are consuming more and more. What was interesting is that when the Russian-Ukrainian war started and the energy prices skyrocketed, Hungarian households showed, as well as institutions and companies and government institutions and municipal elderly homes and schools, showed that they can save energy. And in some ways, I mean, the households managed to lower their energy demand around 20%, while all those municipal institutions, especially in Budapest, what I'm working for at the moment, it was over 30% of the energy saved in this period of time, introducing new ways of new policies and measures in the energy consumption. So I'm just saying that this is when the price is showed and obviously market put into the equation, even households can save energy without any other measures. But but obviously, if there was financial incentives, other measures, support system, information on energy efficiency, then it would be even more controlled. And as a matter of fact, a great deal of energy and the energy dependency and the level of energy consumption could be lowered significantly also in Hungary.
So what you're saying is that partly the dependency on Russian fossil fuel comes from a political choice, top-down choice from subsequent governments. It's a legacy problem of the post-communist Hungary that not only Mr. Orbán, but primarily Mr. Orbán in the recent years have cultivated this direction. But to build up the resilience, there is much work that can be done and that has been demonstrated by society and the local actors in the field. A similar thing we have observed since 2014 in Ukraine, where Ukraine has been increasing energy efficiency of consumption in terms of outputs of heating, energy, also for the industry. And that was closely monitored and assisted by the European Commission. Now, Hungary is in the European Union and is supposedly also benefiting from the programs that enable this improvement of energy efficiency. And I don't mean political or geopolitical choices, which is now the big game. It's the Repower EU. It's about now the ambition to fully close the options to buy anything from Russia that has attached energy bill to it. But I mean to internally prepare our societies to be much more resilient. In our conversation at the Europe Future Forum Polish-Hungarian Perspective Dialogues in Warsaw, I remember you mentioned that part of the problem with oligarchization that we've seen and money grab from the EU funds is that actually the EU funds did not help Hungary as they were supposed to in order to build that resilience. Could you describe that? What's the issue here?
You know, most of the or there is an obligation in every country which receives EU funding and structural funding for restructuring the economy and also energy consumption and attitude towards energy, that some part of the money should go to climate related measures, investments, policies, whatnot. So when the Hungarian government back in the programming period negotiated the terms with the European institutions, obviously it was part of it, and a huge share of the money would have gone to household energy efficiency, meaning renovating multi-apartment houses, single-family homes. This did not happen because they redirected this, partly they redirected the money to other issues and other fields. And the money which stayed on energy efficiency was used to support and finance institutional governmental institutions and governmental buildings retrofit, which is obviously resulted a much lower energy consumption reduction and subsequently a lower CO2 emission reduction, because the grant scheme and the non-refundable money which went into every single investment was at least double of the grant or the share of non-refundable grants to households. So let's say there could be, we can support a multi-apartment building retrofit by 30% of the money given to the housing community to retrofit and put together a complex investment. The Hungarian government supported government buildings by 85%, which is obviously a much higher share, thus resulting in a much lower CO2 emission reduction, and at the same time not supporting the households and not supporting people. And if we factor in the procurement issue, which is also a big problem, we know it from the European Union that they are a bit suspicious about all the procurements happening by and performed by the Hungarian government. It raises another issue that the European money was misused.
So not only that the improvement of overall efficiency, energy efficiency in the country was not as improved because of the targets, meaning the target investments were not properly chosen, but also the additional factor that downplay the effectiveness, the effectiveness of the change is the structural corruption that we already discussed a couple of episodes ago, together with András Simor and Peter Ákos Bod, under the brand of oligarchization, but touching also this built-in mechanism that allows to take some cash but show not as many results. So not result-oriented funding, but rather cash cow model for the European Union. But I wanted to ask you, because you're looking also at the citizens and local communities perspective, how Hungarians as a society are looking at this global change of policies towards the climate change, energy policies, and how they are applying it themselves. Are they applying any of the innovation themselves, looking for improving their chances in a rapidly changing environment where fossil fuel model and heating or energy becomes an important consideration of how to do your family strategy. So how Hungarians are looking at those models, and what are their expectations? Is it only going to be and forever about the low cost of energy bill, or do you see some changes or certain pattern differences?
Well, I'm pretty sure that the amount of money which went already in lowering energy bills for the households, if we used it for energy efficiency, we would be much further in that way of energy, the energy transition in Hungary. But I mean, it's not only Hungary which is using this card when it comes to convincing citizens about voting for that particular party or continue their support to the existing government. It is always a very natural, incumbent, attitude or political card, which can win really elections to the existing government, and that was a very deliberately put policy in 2012 by the Orbán government. But I can say that the Hungarian households are quite innovative in that regard. And that's why I believe that if a well put market system and a price signal would be given to the people, they would choose the optimal and climate friendly options and choice. I don't want to get into very detailed into the problem, but basically what the government did recently is that they put a cap on the consumption by every household on natural gas and electricity as well. So there is X amount of natural gas you can consume in a year or in a season. And if you exceed that, then from that point on, the price of the gas will be very, very high. And it's the same with electricity. So if you have a heating system which has a primary or the primary energy carrier is natural gas, you would use it until that amount of natural gas. And from that on, you would switch on some other type of energy carriers. So this is in a single family home, it is a very, common behavior that people would change according to the price signal their heating system. Natural gas, wood, electricity combined. So that's why, and also there has been a very interesting change when big single family homes became a multi-apartment building by installing a lot of gas metering in order to optimize the price. So that's why I'm saying a lot of intellectual capacity went into this, playing these tricks in different ways and optimizing the price for the household. Therefore, I'm very optimistic that if the price signal is right, then people would use their investment and intellectual capacity and not putting into playing these little tricks, but having a long-term sustainable energy investments and retrofitting their houses rather than using their money and brain just to play out the system.
Yeah. Just to circumvent the system. It's a great story and a great case that you provided of seeing how certain malpractice and trying to cheat the system by Orbán hits back on him when he tries to introduce some policy change and people actually try to circumvent and cheat Orbán's system as well in adapting to the real life situation. Ada, thank you so much for painting the picture of the energy market attitudes and societal reception in the main. We continue focusing on the Hungarian topic in a series of subsequent episodes. We're also going to devote part of our conversation in the next episode to the question of automotive. But energy, going deeper and beyond the gas deal, Orbán, Trump and Putin, recent developments, makes it so much more important and closer to the real Hungarian citizen household than the big power politics and the big corruption behind it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And that's all from this week's episode of the Visegrad Insight podcast, bringing you the leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Make sure to subscribe, and we'll be in touch next week.